Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show. Today is October 29th, and we're doing government and I think you said security?
I did.
Okay, yeah. Government security, just the classic combo.
Like peas and carrots.
Club classics.
And the White House has given some orders that might be a little bit alarming to you because I'm not sure that this is what we want the Pentagon to be up to.
White House orders the Pentagon and Intel agencies to increase the use of AI. On the one hand, I think that, using AI the wrong way, it's like, oh, I see that you've ordered some holographic banana stickers in your Amazon history. We have classified you as an enemy combatant. You will be detained. But on the other hand, you could use AI for things like, hey, what companies are fraudulently billing for EDI 850 and 860 processing in MoCAS?
I don't think that is what the Pentagon should be doing.
It's okay, though, because they said don't use it for stuff that's not compatible with democracy.
But Pentagon.
But they said that if you just don't use it for stuff that's not compatible with democracy, that's fine.
But the Pentagon should be worried about things outside of our borders, don't you think?
But that's the thing. We're compatible with democracy.
Remember last week that we found out the Pentagon was shopping for AI that could defeat social media guards against artificial intelligence. So why would you have to tell them that they need to do that when last week we learned they're already doing it? Seems like maybe just want to do a press release about AI because everybody else is doing it. And the FTC has done some things that, shockingly, we can agree with recently. And of course, the corporate entities, not fans of that, so they roll out these hilarious arguments. It's so much fun because it's insane.
Cable companies asked the Fifth Circuit to block the FTC's click-to-cancel rule. It shouldn't be so easy for people to cancel their stuff.
Included in this was also ad agencies. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And the argument, which, how can you argue against it, right? The argument is basically like, no, we want to talk them out of that, which is exactly what people don't want. Because sometimes, here's a crazy reality, the people who are subcontracted to do that, they're not employees of the company, are paid commission for when you don't cancel. And if they're just the slightest bit dishonest, they might just not let you.
No means no, except when it's a financial transaction.
Yeah, I get an extra $20. If I can get you not to, I'm just going to hang up on you.
Oh, bad. I'm going into a tunnel.
Here in the call center. And the FCC has also made a rule that seems to be pretty popular, or at least they're talking about it. They opened it up to public discourse, and the public weighed in heavily, but so are the corporate people once again.
Ars Technica, please ban data caps, internet users tell the FCC. Yes, data caps do not make sense. And every time this comes up, we always have a lot of apologists in the comments that are like, oh, it's a finite resource. It is like the coffee analogy. This article takes apart the coffee analogy. You should check that out. It's not like coffee at all, but more importantly, there's no reason to have a cap. The reasonable way that you would deal with from a network congestion standpoint is to tell somebody when they buy a plan, it's like, hey, you're buying a gigabit plan. Once you move past, 20 terabytes of downloaded information or whatever, your plan is going to be quality of service throttled to be, 1 megabit, 50 megabit, whatever it is.
They also make the argument, which is insane, saying that, oh, no, because people want plans without data caps or with data caps because they're cheaper. Some people don't use that much internet. Some people don't drink that much coffee.
That is a lie.
So we just give them the cheap one. But the problem is they don't always offer any plan that isn't data capped. And they point out that in the case of, was it Comcast? It's you pay the regular price plus $30 for unlimited, which still throttles, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they still do the network congestion throttling and all that sort of stuff.
It's Comcastic.
It might be different if you were guaranteed a gigabit, but all the ISPs will quickly point out you are not even remotely guaranteed a gigabit. And it's probably something on the internet. But again, all of these ISPs have been caught red-handed lying through their teeth. That's not hyperbole. They literally have been caught lying about things like Netflix, because Netflix is more than happy to pay them to peer in their data centers. They are able to, with a trivial flat cost, completely eliminate all of the network traffic from their network to the internet for Netflix, for all of their customers. But they're not interested in doing that because doing that would eliminate a lot of the congestion that they complain about, which is how they want to charge you money.
It's also true that most, not all, but most community broadband operates without any of that nonsense, and they still manage to make money.
It's weird, isn't it?
Just not, publicly traded money. Just regular profit, which is a waste of everybody's time, right?
Has anybody written a good book on the solution for this that is not like, it really, all roads lead back to opening up the infrastructure so that companies can compete, or if it is a government mandated monopoly, then it seems like you'd have to have a government mandated maximum amount of profit margin, because otherwise the companies will just get increasingly dishonest to try to steal money from you.
A government mandate to fix the government mandate? I feel like we might get a little lost.
Little circular there, a little infinite loop.
Well, it's going to get circular up in the air because there's going to be a lot more propellers flying things around, and now we have some rules about it.
Air taxis and other electric-powered aircraft cleared for takeoff with final FAA rules. Mostly this is not about electric aircraft or electric air taxis. Mostly this is about package delivery.
VTOLs in general.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how they're powered. They previously were like, well, maybe we'll just do like some piecemeal rules, show us what you got. And they were like, no, this is a new kind of vehicle. So now there's a specialized pilot training that you must go through for your VTOL certifications.
Some of the simulations of this where, they have a package warehouse outside of New York, and then a fleet of medium-sized package delivery drones dropping packages on top of like the corporate high-rises and corporate residential buildings in New York. That isn't like, some of the numbers coming out of that are incredible. Just, we can deliver this many packages, and there's like 2 dudes on the roof, and they're responsible for all the deliveries inside that building on that day, and they just, they meet the drones at 6 a.m. and then everything is done by like 1 p.m. That's incredible.
What happens if you have inclement weather?
You have to wait a day.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm imagining your package would be soaked in transit.
Wait, you...
Like, from the warehouse, the drone picks it up and flies it off.
Just put a little shield on there.
One
little umbrella over top.
One of Amazon's things is they literally drive a container ship into the harbor, and then the drones take off and deliver them directly to the buildings.
Not on top of the drone, just on top of the package. Like they'll have a little cubby under there.
For your package to go in.
We're going to make a lot more thin film plastics to destroy the environment.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, we have a story about that.
It's multi-use.
Yeah.
And taxes. We're about to enter into the lovely holiday season, and then we will go through the bitter, dark winter. And then as spring begins to bring everything back to life, we will all be robbed by the government. And everybody hates it, and we want it to be easier. Hey, if you're going to rob me, at least make it convenient, right? But certain companies do not want that.
Democrats want the DOJ to prosecute tax prep companies that allegedly shared user data with Meta and Google. And I read the thing that Senator Elizabeth Warren wrote about this, and it's like, Senator, have you been asleep during the last 5 years of data breaches? Like, everything that you're outraged about here has been done by dozens of private companies and leaked on the internet. Far worse egregious violations. And you're just saying, this is a violation of the law. It's like, apparently it's not. Effectively, it's not, because none of these companies, it's incredible.
I wouldn't say she's asleep, but I would say a daily nap might be in the cards. She's an older gal.
But this letter reads like she's genuinely outraged, but the preponderance of the evidence suggests this is a prop.
Are you saying that politicians sometimes feign outrage?
That doesn't sound right.
Either that or the cognitive decline is incredible.
Well, another thing is declining, and that is security at the border. And no one can explain exactly why this is happening.
30% of the cameras in Border Patrol's main surveillance system are broken, memo says. It's like, this is just a backlog of maintenance. But the people that were talking about this were talking about this under condition of anonymity.
Also, I don't understand this part, but the FAA is in charge of those cameras?
That seemed interesting.
I don't think that the walls fly, do they? Wouldn't be effective if they did.
You realize there's probably a government contracting hopeful that's working on like a drone swarm thing. Like there probably has been a proposal submitted to whoever's got money for border protections. Like we put this box on top of the thing, and the cameras autonomously look for motion and heat signatures. And if it looks like there's people crossing the border, we'll just dispatch a whole bunch of drones to get a better view of it, and then we'll also call the authorities. Like we're probably only 2 or 3 years away from that. We don't need a border wall. We just need a whole bunch of automated systems keeping an eye on it.
Well, another thing that we need to be keeping an eye on is our companies that represent all of our economy being run into the ground for short-term profits. And remember when they failed a bunch and the government stepped in and was like, no, we can't let that happen. But now they're telling us, oh, these companies are terrible, like they don't fear failure anymore. And that's bad.
The Wall Street Journal's headline is Crises at Boeing and Intel are a national emergency. But nobody's talking about how good NVIDIA is doing in this article.
For now.
So, don't they have more representation elsewhere?
Well, I mean, this article is kind of making the argument about, for Boeing, it's like, oh, this is safety and blah, blah, blah. But the argument with Intel is perhaps not as good because the products that do computation have changed from the products that Intel has made historically into the products that NVIDIA makes, which is interesting.
But we invested in them heavily.
As taxpayers?
Yeah.
And yet they're not nationalized. They're still private companies, and they're tanking.
And this one is one that
lose-lose.
is just over and over. You always see the headline, but nothing ever seems to happen. Now, there have been a couple of times where there were bills put out, and I was like, I mean, that sounds pretty good. And then at the last moment, guess what happens?
The U.S. Federal Trade Commission is probing John Deere over customers' right to repair equipment. And I could just go ahead, like, you don't even need to read this article. I can tell you. It's like the FTC found that John Deere did not act in customers' best interests in 99.9 out of 100 times.
But did nothing. The reason we know about this probe is because there was another company that was involved, had another lawsuit, which revealed this. Been going on since 2021. It's taken them that long. I mean, couldn't you just take a quick look, just a quick overview and be like, oh, yeah, this is anti-right to repair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard.
They've deliberately made it more difficult and more fragile.
I do hope that whatever lawyer spotted that little thing was like, ooh, hope they got really excited. They probably were.
Spit their coffee.
They're like, oh, eureka. They're like in a movie, they took their glasses off. And then it cut to them in a meeting where they're like, we have our evidence.
Well, there's no more evidence needed in this case. It's over. And a surprising winner who, despite their failures of recent past, seem to be trying to turn it around with new alliances and now a court win.
Europe's top court rules for Intel to end its long-running antitrust case. And this is not from a recent time that, Intel has used its position to undermine competitors. No, this is from the last time that AMD was doing a little better than Intel with server CPUs, which was quite a long time ago. This was a $1.1 billion ruling, originally in AMD's favor, that Intel had paid their manufacturing partners to look the other way when selecting, what kind of chips would go into servers. And AMD initially won, and then Intel appealed, and Intel's appeals. And here we are a decade later. This is more than 10 years in the making, almost 15 years in the making.
Which, again, has got to make it a little awkward when they meet for that alliance meeting next time.
Remember that time you guys paid Dell not to have our CPUs?
I remember it because they just threw out my case.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Maybe you don't want to drink the coffee at that meeting if AMD is hosting.
I love that video of Putin and Xi Jinping, and they toast each other, and neither one of them takes a drink from the cup.
True friendship.
Yeah, it's just like, that's not.
They don't want each other's cooties.
Putin should have been like, can I get some honey? This is a little bitter.
He did that with Merkel because Merkel's afraid of dogs, and he's like, "Look at my giant dog."
Yeah,
and
he brought his giant dogs into a meeting.
Well, one thing that is hotly debated amongst not just governments, but also many people is when do you give your kid the smartphone? And I don't know, maybe it's a child by child basis. You know your kid best. But no, the EU governments more and more are weighing in on this and making rules.
Norway is going to increase the minimum age limit on social media to 15 to protect children. Yeah, that's fine.
That's up from 13. And wasn't there something about some other rules? I think went to 16. So that means none at all, and that'll have to be enforced on the social media end. You know what that means? Age verification, which is the real reason they want all of this. But let's immediately counter that with Wales.
This one was weird.
In Wales, they've gone the opposite direction. In Wales, they're like, no, you know what? We think the smartphone actually enhances the child's education. Go crazy with it. And then you run into this.
Girl with smartphone unable to join in lesson. So in this school, 11-year-old was, the 11-year-olds in her class were using their phones to look up GPS coordinates on Google Earth and try to figure out where a picture was taken. And she didn't have one because her parents were like, I don't know, this might not be good for you.
She did have a phone, a Nokia, though.
That's not smart.
Yeah.
So she could not look up what they were looking up.
The school gave her a laptop to compensate.
Yeah, but everybody else is on their phones and you're hauling out your laptop.
Yeah.
You get bullied.
But there's part of me that, like, have we lost our way? Because I remember all the parents at my school threw a shit fit when we were told we had to buy graphing calculators. Can you imagine being told you have to have a smartphone? Like thousands of dollars of investment just to...
Well, you could probably get one. You could probably get like a used one.
Yeah.
But still, minimally probably would be like $300, $400.
Yeah, easily.
To get a decent one.
It's more than a TI-80 whatever.
And there's a monthly expense.
Yeah.
So you got that ongoing. That's a weird one. I don't know. I don't think the schools should be on the hook to give all that stuff away, though, because then where does that end?
Yeah.
When do we decide that? It's like, oh, no, I need a laser engraver.
There was nothing more heartbreaking than the smart, underprivileged kid. It's like, here's your laptop, kid. And then his parents are like, yay, drug money.
Yeah, that's something I can go hawk at the...
Not just laptops. Sometimes it was like clothing and toiletries and stuff.
Very disappointing.
We're from a poor area.
Yeah.
And over in the UK, they are not such a poor area, and a lot of people will go there when they are being oppressed elsewhere, and now they want to sue their oppressive countries.
UK-based dissident can sue Saudi Arabia for alleged spyware, court rules. So this guy presented a case like, hey, I've immigrated to the UK legally, and Saudi Arabia is still spying on me and hacking my stuff. And the UK said, well, I guess you could sue them.
Courtesy of NSO software, who's still out there. Now remember, they don't sell it to despotic governments, ever.
It's compatible with democracy.
This was not a dissident that Saudi Arabia was interested in. It was, Burma or something? Burma was using the software.
Because they sell it to whoever.
Yeah.
Whoever can pay for it.
That's weird, isn't it? So weird.
And once again, Wales, which is part of the United Kingdom, but allows smartphones everywhere, and yet UK, I don't understand that, right?
I don't understand all the division between the different parts of the UK and like what's part of the kingdom, what's part of the British Isles. Like someone will explain it to me in the comments and I'll forget.
No one does. Not even the royal family. They have no clue.
No clue of what they actually rule.
But somehow they're doing both simultaneously.
UK considers a new smartphone ban for children.
Was this the one where it was like 16?
Yeah.
I kind of got these confused, I'm going to admit. Oh, we're paywalled.
We got paywalled, yeah. We had a couple stories like this. We have another one, I think, in is it social media, maybe?
This specifically is just in schools, which again goes back to the whole thing, like, does it enhance learning or does it distract?
There was one that, maybe it was this article, where they said there was like a 75% drop in fights after they restricted smartphone use. It's like, that's an insane number.
But you could still go home and get on social media, right?
Right, but then you're not terminally online, as the kids say, if you don't have it during the school day. So you have less time to get angry about stuff to get in fights about.
Okay. And the war situation continues to be, looks like a forever war or two. That's what they love, right? That's what makes the money. But more and more fallout of that is coming up in the software world.
Several Linux kernel driver maintainers removed due to their association with Russia. And this was an executive order. The executive order literally was like, hey, open source counts. Can't work on open source. And so Linus Torvalds and a couple other folks consulted with the lawyers and was like, well, sorry, we have to revoke your maintainership.
But not the drivers themselves.
That's good.
They will still be part of it. They will just be unmaintained.
Or some new people will maintain it.
There's some pretty obscure stuff.
At least, if it's open source, then, it benefits everybody, and especially if the federal government uses it, it'd be nice if the federal government stepped up and said, hey, look, we've got some just rounding error money that you can use to pay some talented developers to do things.
But a lot of that equipment only in Russia. Mm-hmm. So we know they're not going to do it, right? Although they might be flush with cash, although a different kind of cash than we're used to.
Russia says an unprecedented cyber attack hits its foreign ministry amid the BRICS summit. So yeah, the BRICS summit, that was something. India.
They introduced a new kind of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was probably us.
I mean, we're denying it, but
I'm not.
Would anyone be surprised? Yeah.
And what a great time of year to bring out a ghost from the past.
Spectre flaws continue to haunt Intel and AMD as researchers find a fresh attack method. It's still somewhat difficult to exploit.
This is still the branch prediction thing. They thought they had solved something, but some plucky researcher has come along and said, hey, bro, I'm still doing it. Still beat it. You didn't fix it as much as you thought. That wallpaper that you put over that hole, it's got a hole in it.
Didn't work.
And Microsoft tells us that we need to move everything to the cloud, right? That's
Please use OneDrive, please.
It's the only efficient way to do it. It's the only way that you can be sure that your files are backed up securely and that you won't lose them because of hardware, right? But they had a small issue.
Microsoft said that it lost weeks of security logs for its customers' cloud products. Oops. Combine this with the fact that one of the most embarrassing security failures Microsoft has ever had, they weren't even logging the appropriate information for anybody except the most paranoid, highest subscribing tier customers, which is not a lot of customers.
It's not a good look. That is irrecoverable. They will never get that back. They're just like, oh, it's gone.
It's probably fine.
Microsoft quoted as saying, oops.
Narrator, it was not amazing.
And this one, there's not a ton of new information here, but I think it bears repeating. Many of you, if you view this program regularly, you've probably heard this a lot, but maybe there's some new people that need to hear this.
The Ars Technica headline is Location Tracking of Phones is Out of Control. Here's how to fight back. If you've been following this program for any amount of time, there's no new information here, but this is the article you save to send to people when they're incredulously like, oh, how bad is it? And it's like, it's pretty bad.
That's why it's links with friends. They point out some settings that you can change, but I would go so far as to say, don't trust that. Also, Samsung is going to switch it back next week.
We rolled out an update. Oops, we clobbered your preferences. Our bad.
We want to make that all hidden behind AI. You don't even get to change your preferences.
And this actually is the exact same situation. Nothing really new here, but again, it's nice to remember. In terms of when we're thinking about security here in the security section, this is a big one, and what can we do about it?
Lawsuit argues warrantless use of flock surveillance cameras is unconstitutional. We've reported on flock surveillance cameras for a very, very long time. This lawsuit says, clearly the aggregation and collection of all of this information has to be some kind of invasion. And it was not, while maybe strictly under a very strict interpretation, it was not contemplated by the Constitution. This is obviously unreasonable searches.
But you have no expectation of privacy in public. Now, again, those court cases were all settled before it was just like constant surveillance. The argument here is I can't go anywhere. Like they mapped out all the cameras. And they're like, here's my house. Here's everything in town. I can't go to anything in town without you tracking me, knowing exactly where I am. And they also pointed out, for example, some people had jobs where they were caretakers for people with a particular disease. Well, you know exactly who has the disease, don't you? Because you can track that. Well, is that a HIPAA thing? It's a good argument. I don't think they're going to have any success. And security tips from the NSA. Do you think they have a department of irony at the NSA?
Well, you should power off your phone at least once a week, according to the NSA. They say that some of the security vulnerabilities that may be exploitable from messages or anything like that don't actually make any changes to the permanent memory on your phone. It's just the running memory. Things could be running in the background. And by powering off your phone and powering it back on, that can reset the memory, like, because nothing was written to permanent storage to be able to track forensically, and so that can be useful.
That's why I let my phone die all the time.
I never do that. I should probably do that. It's not a bad suggestion, even though they're horrible people. And if you're wondering how we got to this point where our entire lives are tracked, everything is surveilled, everything is recorded, the answer is, they boiled the frogs, but you got to keep boiling even earlier and earlier. And now we must boil the tadpoles and get them used to the surveillance state.
Students raise privacy concerns over using QR codes to get into bathrooms.
Again, what if you're the kid who doesn't have a smartphone?
I know, right?
Do you just not piss? Like, what's the... Also, as, the only one at the table here who menstruates, there are concerns about, like, they would be able to track when you were having your period, because it's like, oh, they have to go to the bathroom all the time. Their QR code usage goes up 1 week a month. I wonder what that is.
As you were saying that, I read red tide covers parts of Southern California.
And you were like, oh, no. I'm riding the crimson wave. I had to haul ass to the ladies.
But, and also, because they don't want you going into the bathroom playing on your phone, you scan the QR code in the classroom and then leave your phone behind because you're not allowed to touch it. Then you go. And it's on a timer, which is on the phone. So you don't know how much time you've got left. I'll admit that when we were in high school, it's a long time ago now, it was a constant problem with smokers.
Right.
Like, it was never ended.
Couldn't you just take the kid's phone and say, put it on my desk and then go to the bathroom?
That's what they're doing. You scan the QR
Yeah,
code.
but you could do it without the QR. Like, you don't have to have the surveillance aspect here.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't be able to have all that student data of how often.
Yeah, so you can then lose it and then, cause a massive privacy concern.
I imagine there's probably a limit, right? Maybe not a spoken limit, but at some point, if you're going to the bathroom like 5 times a day, they're probably going to flag something.
Here's my doctor's note. Thank you.
You're going to get stones. You're going to get the stones.
Maybe. It's possible. Anything's possible.
It's just absurd.
Well, that's all we've got.
That's it.
Thanks for hanging out.
Go be angry about that.
We'll see you tomorrow where we've got, what, business news and what?
Social.
I thought this was going to be under social. I guess it's not. Anyway, bye!